If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, the radio chick, Annie Ubelis. Join Annie on Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an open chat room full of her regulars. And yes, you can even call in. Call 917-889-3675. That's 917-889-3675 to be a part of the action on the phone lines. Not able to listen live? Not a problem. You can always catch Annie, the radio chick, and Southern Sense Talk Radio podcasts in archives at southern-sense.com. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Southern Sense the right way.
Good afternoon. You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media High Plains, Daily News, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie. And we seem to be having some problems with my broadcasting up on XSplitter. All right. We're doing the live broadcast here on Blog Talk Radio. And if I can get my co-host up here. Good afternoon, Curtis. How are you today? Well, it seems I had gotten... I had everything set up on the computer to broadcast on YouTube, Facebook, and a bunch of other places, and it just decided to go flat out on me. So if anyone is attempting to listen there... It's asking me if I want to continue. I have no idea what I am doing here. All right. I'm hoping that we got everyone going out there. Geez. It's going to be one of those days, Curtis. Definitely one of those days. Okay, we seem to have got ourselves back up on Gab. We've got ourselves back up. Let's hope we got ourselves back up on YouTube now. Just... Bear with me, folks. This is something new I am doing. Anyway, we've got ourselves a fantastic show going on today. We've got some great guests. We've got Barry Bell, who is running for Trey Gowdy's seat here in South Carolina. And we also have Brian Crabtree, who will be joining us. And I want to welcome those who are showing up in the chat room. But like I said, I am having a problem getting the other broadcast up onto Facebook and YouTube, and here we go. We finally got, looks like, it's telling me I've got too much memory going on the computer. So it looks like that is what is going on that. So I've got to close some stuff out, and hopefully all this will be going up. Start broadcast. So back up on Facebook, back up on YouTube, back up on Gab. So here we go, folks. Something new. Oh, geez. As I get myself a little organized, I got to tell you, those that are listening and in and watching on the video, we did a little rearranging of the office here, and everything's a little turned around. So trying to get myself organized. Desks are all in different places. So... It's any way in which to confuse Annie Day today. Anyway, again, I want to welcome everyone that is listening in and watching. Those that watch the show know that we start off each and every one with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to two firefighters out of York County, Pennsylvania. Ian Flancher and Zachary Anthony. Their end of watch was just this past week, Thursday, March 22nd. And this is coming out of Liz Evans, and it was published at York City Firefighter. And it reads, York City firefighters Evan Flancher and Zachary Anthony weren't alone when part of a building collapsed and mortally wounded them. And they weren't alone afterwards either. From the time that this happened, someone from the fire department has been with them, York County Fire Rescue Chief David Michaels said, around 4 p.m. on Friday, March 23rd. Firefighters rushed to York Hospital, where Flancher, 50, and Anthony, 29, were taken by ambulance from the scene of the old Weaver Piano and Organ Company. The building was at 127 North Broad Street on Thursday, March 22nd. The building burned down the day before. After the firefighters were pronounced dead, colleagues and other first responders lined both sides of a hospital walkway and saluted as the men's bodies were wheeled out. Many in the group then escorted their fallen brothers to Canar Associates Funeral Home in South George Street in the city, the lights of their emergency vehicles illuminating the solemn procession in red, white, and blue. There, throughout the night, at least one firefighter stood watch over Flancher and Anthony. York City Fire and Rescue Chief David Michaels said. A second escort was on Friday morning. The men's bodies were taken to Allentown's Lehigh Valley Hospital for autopsy. They were accompanied by a long line of fire trucks and other emergency vehicles. The procession then waited outside the hospital while the autopsy was performed. As they waited, firefighters from Lehigh Valley area and beyond came to pay their respects and to support the grief, according to the fire chief. Some of them took York area responders to their stations, where they were fed and given a chance to rest, Michael said. It's the first time since 1971 that York City firefighters had to fulfill the tradition of ensuring that a comrade isn't alone, even in death. Flancher and Anthony were the 12th and 13th York City firefighters killed in the line of duty, according to retired Deputy Chief Greg Halpin, who is the department's historian, and the 32nd and 33rd York City firefighter or ambulance crew member to die in the line of duty. Firefighters say they will now struggle with survivor's guilt, and that the two injured firefighters who survived, Assistant Chief Greg Altland and firefighter Eric Swanson, will be especially vulnerable to it. The much-needed support was given, Michael said. The connection firefighters share has led the colleagues from across the county to reach out. From across the country to reach out. And members of the community have reached out as well, dropping off food and flowers, some stopping into the city's fire stations simply to offer condolences. He said retired York City firefighters, some of the off-duty for a quarter century, flocked to city stations in the minutes and hours after the news broke about the partial building collapse with entrapment. That extended family...
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, what the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass f- So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Was together when they learned of the deaths. Firefighters from around York County manned York City's fire stations Friday, so Flancher's and Anthony's co-workers were able to escort their bodies to Allentown, according to Michaels. Also offering help were fire departments from Lancaster, Harrisburg, Chambersburg, and other South Central Pennsylvania communities. We cannot say enough and give thanks enough for all we've received. It means a lot, Michael said at a news conference on Friday. It's the support that's going to get us through. Michael said Flancher and Anthony were very different people, but both were dedicated to the fire service. Evan Flancher was a very laid-back guy, never got rattled, never got excited, the chief said. Whether he was going to a structure fire or a trash fire, he was always very, very calm. Flancher's survivors include 3 daughters, a stepdaughter, a stepson, and his wife. Flancher was named York City Firefighter of the Year for 2004 and received commendations from other heroic actions, including saving a bum victim from a kitchen fire, who was closing in on 20 years on the job. York City resident and Harrisburg firefighter Brian Bastinelli recalled seeing Flancher at a fire on Susquehanna Street in York City a few years ago. Ivan had squarely kicked this fire's A and came out of the building, and his gear told the story of what had just happened, Bastinelli said. Flancher was covered in soot. His gear was compromised by the heat of the blaze. He wasn't allowed to go back in because of the damage to his gear, Bastinelli recalled. He was so mad, he just wanted to get back at it. Flancher tried a few more times to work his way back inside, but eventually gave up and battled the blaze from outside, his friend said. He just wanted to work. That's the kind of brother you want at your fires. Steve Buffington, retired York City Fire Chief and current codes officer for the city, said Flancher was vested with the community, including redeveloping blighted city properties. He did everything that was expected of him and more, Buffington said. You always knew you can count on him to be there and to stay there with you. Anthony, not yet 30, and originally from the Poconos, had spent more than 7 years as a city firefighter, according to Michaels, and he and his girlfriend had made plans for their future. He was a family guy, a young guy ready to get his life started with marriage and children, Michaels said. People liked to be around Anthony, according to the chief. Zach was our jokester. Everything he said was funny. A liaison from the fire department has been assigned to each of the grieving families, according to Michaels, to meet any need the survivors have, whether big or small. He said Flancher's and Anthony's families are holding up the best they can. Today's show is dedicated to these 2 brave firefighters. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women out there who serve as first responders, be they firefighters, law enforcement, or emergency services. It is also dedicated to all the brave men and women that serve our country in the military, to the brave men and women that have served from the birth of our nation through today and into the future. We dedicate to them with the song, Amazing Grace. May God bless each and every one of them.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now
You're here listening to Southern Sense here on Blog Talk Radio, SHR Media, High Plains, Daily News, Kinetic Hi-Fi, the Fix FM out of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the radio chick, Annie. And it looks like, Curtis, is that our caller in on the line? Curtis? And this is, and the guest is Curtis? Okay, all right, let's bring him in. All right, let's bring him in and mute him. And you have to apologize, folks. Like I said, everything's a brand new setup today, and I don't know where anything is. Oh, man. Good afternoon, Barry. How are you today? All right, like I said, I have to apologize. You know, it's a new setup in my office that we just did over the weekend, and everything is a little fouled up. So if we sound a little nuts, it's because we are today. Oh, man. And of course, you are a retired Marine Corps, hoorah, here from the heart of the Marine Corps. And I'm like halfway in between Paris Island and the Marine Corps Air Station, so I know where you're coming from. And you are running for, I believe, Trey Gowdy's seat, correct? Well, you know, here in South Carolina, we have a tendency to put up a lot of people for offices when it comes to the congressional seats. Because if you remember, when Mark Sanford's seat was up before he won the election, I believe at one point there were 17 in the field. We had 14 of them here at the same time on air. Talk about cattle call. It was like herding cats. But this is an important seat. Oh, okay. Oh, that we appreciate. That we definitely appreciate. You come from a very interesting background, so introduce yourself to our audience so they know who you are and what you're about, and tell us also why you decided at this time to run for the office. Well, you've had the on-the-grounds experience, in the military. And from what I was reading on your website, you're more of a, wouldn't exactly call you an isolationist, but you would rather see it as more, you would rather see it as I understand it. No, go ahead. So, then the question would be, if we were to see something happen, say, for example, someone attacks Japan, you would step back or would you intervene at that point? All right. Now, you had mentioned treaties before, and one of the things you had mentioned also in there is that you were against the tariffs. And I had asked Mark Sanford this very question because, again, like you, he's against the tariffs. But it's a tool which you can lay on the negotiating table and wave over someone's head. And if it works as a tool, and you don't implement actually tariffs, you use it as a negotiating tool to get the best deal possible, what's wrong with that? All right. Curtis, if you wanted to have a question, just feel free to jump in. One of the things I love, a lot of people say they're pro-life, but there are people that very rarely actively do something about it, and there's a lot of movement now of the pro-life organizations. In the past, you didn't see much going on, but now we're seeing things coming through here in the State House here in South Carolina with Richard Cash and his Personhood Act. And now we're also seeing Congress itself acting on it and restricting the types of abortions. except for the fact they went forward in this last omnibus bill and funded Planned Parenthood. When you get to Congress, what would you do to further the pro-life movement? Well, Barry, a number of years ago, there was something that was attempted to be done in Congress, and I believe Sanford was one of the ones that was co-sponsoring this bill, that you had to cite on each and every piece of legislation that went through what part of the Constitution allowed you to do that. Because when we get so ridiculous and Congress dictates the type of light bulb and toilets we use, that's not part of the Constitution. Those were never part of the enumerated powers. So do you think we can get back to the point of having Congress, having the House cite exactly where in the Constitution it allows them to pass the bills that they are. I like the idea that you have that whoever adds a line, alters a line, has their name attached to that line. But furthermore, passing a bill, an insider trading bill. Because if I, as a civilian, were to do the insider trading that we see Congress and the Senate doing, I would be behind bars. And people have gone to jail for doing insider trading. But for some reason, the House and the Senate are exempt. They know these bills are coming up. And Harry Reid is a perfect example of purchasing land, specifically knowing that development was going to be in that area. And can we, as you said, put the stop to this walking in Congress, a pauper, and walking out a billionaire? That is amazing that they would actually mandate you to co-sponsor a piece of legislation just simply because it's from the other party. Not because it's something you believe in, but it's because it's from the other party, so you must make this compromise. When is it that compromising our principles is fashionable? Yeah, this was like over 2,400 and some odd pages. And I was watching on Fox News Rand Paul before he went running in for the vote, and he barely got halfway through the first 800 pages. Over 2,400 pages, and he barely got through less than a third of it. And that's a sorry state for our Congress. That the fact they came up with something so huge. It's Nancy Pelosi that's passed the bill to find out what's in it. Yeah. Yeah, and they cram this thing together so last minute, and it's like, oh, the government's going to shut down. But when you actually think about it, sometimes it's a good thing that the government shuts down. People will still get paid. They may get paid a couple of days late, but, you're talking about shutting it down over a weekend. How many people are working in the government over the weekend? It was so ridiculous. It was such a stupid excuse. There are some good things in there for the military, but everything else they have in there, just so that the military can get their money, I'm wondering whether or not it was actually worth it. Couldn't they wait just a few more days, give people time over the weekend with their staff to go through and fine-comb that bill and kick out the crap? But they didn't do that, and I think that's the weakness on the side of both parties. Go ahead, Curtis. That is that's an understatement, basically, because we're all basically cogs. But some of us a little bit more valuable than others. But anyway, I'm looking at some of the other issues that you've listed on your website, and talk about people being nothing more than numbers. And this is something we've done a show on in the past. Is that asset forfeiture? It's still going on. I thought the brakes were put on this, but it's still a tool that law enforcement communities across the United States are still using, and some of them only to fatten the coffers of their organization rather than forwarding justice. Well, it's funny you talk about that, the battle on cash. Recently, Citibank, and I'm trying to think of what the other bank was, two banks stated that they will no longer support gun sales through their services. I know PayPal has attempted to do that. Several other, transaction companies have been doing that. And it's an attack on the Second Amendment. But it's an attack on any free enterprise individual to conduct their business. So we have the government going after our cash, and then we have, by proxy, other agencies working in conjunction with the government going after our Second Amendment rights. It seems as if our liberties and our freedoms are being attacked at every chance they can. I'll say it, Walmart. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But now we have these marches across the nation after the Parkland shooting, and I'm wondering why it took them that long to decide to make this. But there's also questions as to who's organizing behind a lot of these marches. Now, I will defend to death the right for someone to exercise their free speech. But when that free speech is being controlled for a nefarious purpose, what do we do about it? Yeah, well, look at YouTube. They've just in the last couple of days pulled down any and every video that had to do with guns and, how to handle it properly, how to clean it properly, the different features in one weapon compared to another. Yeah, that, again, is another attack on our free speech. But a funny enough thing is that I was watching a special, and I don't remember what the channel is, but they're doing this magnificent specials, 2-hour segments on our American history. And I was not surprised, but amazed that they actually stressed the fact that some of the men out there fighting were as young as 10 years old. And it was only because their properties, their farms, their homes were being invaded by the British that even someone as young as 10 years old needed to know how to use a firearm to defend the family. This is what the purpose of the Second Amendment was. So now you're going to tell me that you can only be 21 in order to handle a firearm? There was a woman down in Georgia just last year. She and her son took refuge in a closet because the house was being broken into. And the guy that was broken into the house was known not just only for burglary, but for also rape. And the 10-year-old boy was able to defend his mother by using that firearm. So, they failed to understand the purpose of the Second Amendment. Not to defend just us against our government, but to defend us against any ill will towards us. To defend our right to life. And these kids are just being so brainwashed. Well, it's funny because in the chat room, Curtis, I just want to mention that in the chat room, Bigfoot had posted, not old enough to own a gun, old enough to tell me not to own a gun. Very exactly what we've been saying. Go ahead, Curtis. Oh, we're going to be talking about that. Don't worry about it, because I got a list of different companies and other agencies that have their finger on doing this. Oh yeah, we know some of them because David Greenfield had wrote an article about that. Oh yeah. But anyway, I'm looking at the clock. We got only about a few more minutes with you before our next guest calls in. And I'm looking for my notes. Okay, here we go. Because we've talked about the free speech and Second Amendment. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is the attack on Christianity. Now, just before Obama left office, about a year before he left, Loretta Lynch, being the Attorney General, had put down a dictate where she said, we're going to go after anyone that criticizes Islam. And yet we see time and time and time again the attack on Christianity here, whether it's the baker that doesn't want to make the wedding cake for a same-sex couple, or whether or not the Ten Commandments are posted outside a high school or a courtroom. And then just so much as we no longer have the sidewalk corner preachers anymore, because it's a noise nuisance. So free speech is being stifled anywhere and everywhere. You can have a Muslim prayer room in a school or an airport, but you cannot have someone come in with a Bible or a crucifix. How do we bring back religious freedom? Well, you're living here in South Carolina, and there's a huge lawsuit going on here within the Anglican and Episcopal Church, a huge rift. And at this point, the liberal branch, the Episcopal Church of America, is trying to seize the assets of those of us that are the members of the Anglican, North American Anglicans. And one of the oldest, actually the second oldest Episcopal church in the United States happens to be right here in Beaufort, the parish of St. Helena. And one of the bishops going after us said she would rather see the doors of our church closed and reopened as a mosque. And that is how much they have been going after our faith. This has now been a court case here in South Carolina. The South Carolina State Supreme Court ruled against us. And matter of fact, one of the judges should have recused herself, and there were calls for her to recuse herself because she was personally involved with the Episcopal Church, legally and in other ways. So now this is heading towards the Supreme Court. So what you just said is happening today. we don't know if next month or next year we're going to have a building. And this church goes back to 1712. We have family buried there. I don't personally have family, but the family of this parish is all around the church. And remember the church of Old Sheldon Church, the church that made famous in Gone with the Wind that was burned down up in Yemassee. That is one of our properties. We are on the verge of losing all of this because of a court case. And it's a single word in a document that could cause us to lose it. So yes, they're using the law against us now to silence our speech. It is happening here. Well, there's a huge amen to that. You know, we are attached to our buildings, yes, but the Lord has a way of serving us because He sent us this pastor at this time, and I think it's because of that, to test us to say, are you willing to let go of what is material and follow what is spiritual? And that's a little hard for a human being to do because you walk into the churchyard. As soon as you walk in there are two graves of British soldiers from the Revolutionary War, because the British general said, we will not stoop to low practices, basically is what he said, and we will bury them with dignity and honor. And they are buried in a prominent spot in our churchyard. This church has survived the French and Indian Wars, and it has survived the Revolutionary War. It was used as a Union hospital in the Civil War. Now it's going to be the battle of faith that we're going to see if we can survive. All right. Well, while we're waiting for our next guest to call in, I have one of the last questions. You know, I am a huge proponent of the fair tax, seeing get rid of the IRS, you know, amend the Constitution for that, and go forward with a fair tax where I choose how much tax to pay based upon what I consume. What's your stance on our taxation system? Well, you know, I did not mention what your website is, which is votebellforcongress.com. So people can go to your website, read more about you, learn more about you, and if they want to help participate in the campaign, whether through a donation or anything, they can go there also, correct? Oh, God bless. And I wish you a lot of luck in your campaign. And we'll be talking with you soon. The primary is coming up on June 21st, I believe. Am I correct? June 12th. It's right numbers, but in the wrong position. Matter of fact, I got to send that to my own Tea Party people to make sure that they show up and get everyone else out for the primary, because we've got Katie Arrington running against Mark Sanford in Beaufort County here. And also, if you're in the listening voice and you do have a primary going on in your county, your state, or whatever, you get out there, get people out for the primary, because it's a mid-year primary. It's a low turnout, but we need heavy conservative and Republicans turning out there. Also check, because they'll need poll watchers and poll workers. We don't want to see Democratic influence on our polls. We want to see free. See, I'm not a little biased here. Free and open elections. And Curtis, you have one last question. Go ahead. Well, thank you very much, Barry. And it's votebellforcongress.com. And we'll be speaking with you soon, and good luck. You too. All right, Barry Bell, check him out, votebellforcongress.com. Our next guest is up in the bullpen, and let's bring him along. And good afternoon, Brian Crabtree. How are you today? Oh, man, I don't even know where to start with you, because last night I was putting my notes together, and I was saying, all right, what's going to be fun to talk with Brian about, because you're always a lot of fun to talk with. There's a myriad of subjects that we can cover on this one, and I swear, I must have walked out with about an inch thick of paper on different articles and things. I said, oh, man, this would be good, this would be good, this would be good. But you've got yourself a website, and last time you were on, I meant to talk about it, which was Talk 40, where you take the top 40 items that are going on and you speak about them. So how do you narrow it down? That's my question. How do you decide what is the best thing to talk about? Do you go by popularity or just something that floats your boat? Well, I was listening to a lot of the news, and just about every single station you turned on to for the news, I'm not talking about local stations, I'm talking about those on cable and satellite TV. They were all, Jesus, so much, this goes to show how much I really didn't want to listen to it. This woman's making the accusations against Trump. She had the one-night stand. Stormy Daniels. Yeah. Talk about a brain fart there. And everyone was talking about it. Go go ahead. You know, it's funny because my husband looked at me last night. He goes, "Did you watch the 60-minute thing?" I says, "No, I had no interest in it. But you know what? On reflection, maybe I should watch a little bit of it." So I turned on a segment of it, and I started watching it for like the first 5 minutes or so. And Brian, you know, I'm a retired cop. Within the first few minutes, I'm going, "That woman's stoned. She is stoned off her butt." And also my husband looks up at it and she waves her hand or something, look like she's about ready to fall over. And he goes, "Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah." And at that point, I said, that's all I need to know. What you said about her taking the money, she signed the agreement, she took the money, and she opened her mouth anyway. But sitting there on camera, and you know, you're in studio, you got that hot light on you, the light is right in your face, your eyes going to go pinpoint. They're not going to go pupils wide open. I says, that's it. That's all I need to know about her. That's it. End of story. Well, he also did that interview with the other woman that said she had an extended affair with him, and they, who was it? Was it Tucker Carlson? Well, someone ran a bunch of clips of Anderson Cooper asking all these questions. And my husband and I, we almost fell off the couch laughing. He was asking her some of the most intimate questions. Did you take his pants off, or did he take them off? I don't go, excuse me? This is really? Well, go ahead, Curtis. You know, it's funny. I'll just say one name: Fusion GPS. And if what Trump did was illegal, then what do you call Fusion GPS? I hope he. Well, here, I'll give you something to rant about. All right, Curtis, hang on a second. I was going to change the subject a little bit, give him something else to rant on, because you're talking about typical media mentality. And this came directly off CNN's site, written by Sarin Ganem. I probably mispronounced it right. Secretary Zinke is trying to drain the swamp. So, of course, he's on a little tour doing his speeches, and he states, what's important is having the right person for the right job. I care about excellence, and I'm going to get the best person, and you'll find we have the most diverse group anyone's ever had. Now, all of a sudden, CNN is calling over to his office, the Department of Interior, and they're screaming bloody blue murder. You want to hire the best people possible, but what about diversity? Meanwhile, Zinke said we have the most diverse, and they say, well, what about diversity, culture diversity, and all of this? So his spokesperson, Heather Swift, said, oh yes, we're concerned about diversity. But here it is, CNN is not caring about having the best person in the job, but you have to have diversity. So, talk about. Well, Curtis, I'm sorry I cut you off. Go ahead. Well, now I'm going to change you onto a different subject. We had briefly talked about with a previous guest who's running for Congress here, trying for a Trey Gowdy seat, about this March for Our Lives after the Parkland School shooting. All of a sudden, everyone is all agog about guns. You know, they weren't this bad when Kathy Gifford was shot, and we've been having school shootings long before Columbine, but now all of a sudden, after all this time, it's a major front issue. And Daniel Greenfield, he's known as the Sultan Nish, did an excellent article about tracing the money. He's really good at this. Follow the money. And you start to realize exactly who and what is behind these marches. You know, these kids, there's 15, 16, 17 years old. Yeah, they may be tech savvy, as our previous guest said, but who's behind this? Who is putting together? Because everyone's coming out with these really beautiful four-color posters and banners and everything. You don't get that stuff overnight. I mean, my husband and I used to have a printing business. It doesn't get printed overnight. And then he did Follow the Money. The Take Every Town, which is one of the noisiest groups. It's from Every Town for Gun Safety. It was formed out of two other groups, Moms Demand Action, and here we go, Bloomberg's group, Mayors Against Illegal Guns. So actually, Every Town is basically New York City. Also, March for Every Lives is an incorporated 501c4, so they don't have to disclose their donors. You know, lo and behold, you don't have to find out where you... Yeah, Yeah. And the permit was filed by Dina Katz, who's co-executive director of the Women's March Los Angeles Foundation. Here we go, two liberal cities. Her Katz lists her as the person in charge of event. She's former Dancing with the Stars Bill Maher producer. She's also was a Hollywood talent agency. Media contacts is handled by 42 West, which is a PR firm which is associated with George Clooney. And you start following this money, and it's one left organization after another after another. I mean, we can't blame this one this time solely on George Soros. I love it. I love it. But you know, the funniest part about this whole march, they had a rapper performing on this past Saturday, and the rapper's name is Vic Mensa. Oh yeah, like the organization for those that have superior intellect. In the March of Lives in D.C., they had him singing. And lo and behold, the irony is that not only has Mensa owned guns, he was arrested last year in Beverly Hills, California, and booked on a felony count of carrying a concealed weapon. Yes, the weapon was registered, but it was registered to carry in a different state. So there's no reciprocity at that point. So he gets arrested for carrying guns, but he's the rapper singing at this gun-free concert in D.C. Can it get any better than this? You know, it's funny because I do look at my feed every now and then on Facebook, and I don't go up on it every day. I'm not one of these people fanatic. You know, I don't go up on. Sometimes I don't even hit Twitter for about a week. But I'll look at the feed, and I'll see stuff like you're talking about, people that have these emblems on there, and going, wait a minute, you know you're on a feed that is a conservative individual, and you post this liberal BS, and I just start blocking, and I don't care. You know, I probably could have several thousand, followers, but I don't care. If you're putting something up on my feed that I don't agree with, I'm going to take it down, or I'm going to debate you first, and then I'll take you down. But you mentioned the Supreme Court ruling on same-sex marriage. I actually got into a fight with a family member, someone I love very dearly, and they didn't know that I was the person they were debating. And this was over same-sex marriage. And I said, the Supreme Court need not even get into this decision. Number one, marriage is a religious right. A civil union is a government-issued license. So if you're going to tell my church I have to perform this marriage because of the Supreme Court ruling, then you have violated the First Amendment of the Constitution, that government shall not establish a religion, nor prohibit the free expression thereof. And that's the part that people always forget. And I got into this huge debate, and I says, every state, every municipality have laws on the books and regulations on the books for domestic unions. It's called a civil union. You go to your town hall, your county office, or wherever it is, or the local judge. You get yourself a license. He pronounces the word, and you say, I do, and you're married. You're married according to what you feel. But in truth, it's a civil union. It's a legally recognized domestic union. And then you have the rights of inheritance and child rearing and all the other things you claim you don't have the rights to. Then you take it to a religious institute, whether or not it's a mosque, it's a church, it's a temple. And if you can find someone to perform the religious rite, you have gone from a civil union to a marriage. It's the same damn thing. It's just now you're recognized under religious auspices. But you had the government recognition for everything else you wanted. And I don't know why people don't understand that. It went too far. It went way too far. And this is how... Because I've stressed also that, once you're in a civil union, you have the right to file your living will, last will and testament, healthcare proxy, all these other documents, as you're saying, estate planning. You have all the same things that every other person here in the United States has. And the term marriage actually goes all the way back to the Bible. And it was reaffirmed in the New Testament when Christ described marriage between one man and one woman. Now, this is a religion. This is under Judaism now in Christianity. So that reaffirms the religious aspect of it. So a civil union is the government aspect. And go ahead. It's funny because my husband and I do have several friends that, are same-sex, in same-sex relationships or whatever. And one couple I sat down with, and they thinking, oh, God, here she is, the conservative. We're going to get into the fight. It was right after the Supreme Court decision. And I laid out my reasoning, and very calmly, very clearly. And we sat there for the next 2 hours drinking, having fun, and they said, yes, we agree with you. I had another friend who lives up in North Carolina called over here, and he goes, that was the stupidest decision I have ever heard of. I don't agree with it. And then again, he articulated the very same argument I did. And this is coming from someone who is gay. But it got so bad. Regis Giles wrote this a couple of days ago for listeners. She's got the website Girls Just Want to Have Guns. As a matter of fact, she'll be back here on the show next month. That a former police officer, Brandon Tatum, went to his son's school. And there, he knew the school was liberal. He said, all right, I accept it. This is the school I'm sending my son to. I know it's liberal, but they're giving him a good education anyway. And instead of finding the American flag flying, it was the LGBTQ flag flying. And he posted a rant up on, I believe it was his Facebook page. And at one point he said, this is stage one of brainwashing our young people, my teeth are in backwards here, to desensitize them to American values. This is one of the most diverse schools I've ever seen. I mean, kids from all walks of life are in this school. And for them to devalue the American flag in the classroom was just shocking to me. And I said, well, if they don't have the American flag to pledge allegiance to, what are they pledging allegiance to? And to me, when I see them doing to a child, it's akin to child abuse. But I want to get, because we're down to our last 11 minutes here, and there was a couple of things I want to get over to you. These are the funny side things that I picked up, and I'm saying, everyone's, talking about Stormy Daniels and all this other crap, but there was this had my husband cracking up because family was from Latvia. The Slovakian Prime Minister, Peter Pellegrini, was doing a press conference. And he replaced Prime Minister Robert Fico, he and his entire cabinet resigned over an unsolved murder of an investigative journalist, Jan Kuciak. But Slovakian Prime Minister Peter Pellegrini was caught on camera as he went to pick up his cell phone. Out of his suit jacket slipped out a little white packet, a packet of Coke. And this is caught on camera. And no one picked it up. Except for, American News picked it up, AAN News picked it up, and I said, oh my God, how can this slip? That no one picks up. This is the Prime Minister of a country, and a little packet of Coke, just accident, and he scoops it up so casually, and it's as if nothing happened. And in the video, it's just so hysterical. You know, I said this before to a previous guest. We are becoming iRobot. Isaac Asimov wrote about this in iRobot. And I read that book back in, the late 60s, early 70s. And I said, no, this could never happen. But as I grow older, and I'm 2 years old, I'm seeing it. I am actually seeing it. And as you said, interpersonal relationships are difficult. You watch kids today going out for a job interview in shorts and flip-flops. I mean, if I ever did that in my age, I would have been dressed to the nines. You know, you're going for an interview. You have to look the person in the eye. You have to be able to shake their hand, to articulate clearly why you're applying for the job and what you can bring to the job. Kids today, they shuffle, they have their eyes down, they don't know how to interact with each other, much less going out for an interview or anything else like that. It is really, really sad. Yeah. No, it's funny because you're absolutely right. I went to Lowe's myself just a week ago to get an estimate for a job I need done. I stood there for 45 minutes as this guy was trying to figure out how to work the computer. For 45 minutes. And then when I went and they called me and say the estimate's all ready for you, I go back to the store. And no, it wasn't ready because I hadn't put all the prices in. Wait a minute. Isn't that what an estimate's supposed to be? So I had to stand there for another 45 minutes where they finally figured out, what to put in and what they needed. And all the items I told them I wanted, they weren't even in the computer. So I had to go back and look and get all the items for them to give them the items. And I said, this is absolutely insane. If you go to a grocery store, and my mom's a chatterbox, God bless her, she's 85, I love her dearly, and I take her to the shopping, she will stand there chatting with a perfect stranger for 10 or 15 minutes. It'll drive me crazy because I want to go on to my next stop. I'm here, I need to hit here, here, and here. So that's in my mind. But what I've learned from her over all these years is you stop and you chat with someone. Just to say hi, how is your day going? Or, I like the shirt you're wearing. It's very attractive. Where'd you get it from? Just some sort of an interaction with people to remind them that they're human. So every time now, whenever I go to the store, I try to do that with someone. And I was in Lowe's just the other day to get something for her house, and I could not find the item on the shelf, and I'm looking for someone to help me. And a guy comes walking past me, and Lowe's has those red vests on. He had a red shirt on with a tag that said, "I'm happy to help you." And I stopped for a second and I said, no, that's not a Lowe's guy. And he looked at me, looking at him, because no, I don't work here. I realized that. I was just trying to find help. This guy stood there with me for the next 5 minutes trying to help me. I said, I know you don't work here. I was just looking for someone from Lowe's. Well, Brian, I'm going to make a suggestion, because if you still have that receipt from the store you went to, on the receipt is the cashier's name or her employee number. Photocopy that receipt and send a letter to that store and say you want the note placed in the employee's folder. As a former business owner and business manager, I was always so happy to get one of these, because then I'd call the employee in and say, hey, listen, this came in. I wanted to let you know it's going in your folder. Well, I'm going to coin a phrase. I'm going to call it the Zinke factor. After the fact, he says, I want the most competent, and his agency is saying, well, wait a minute. So that's a new phrase for today, the Zinke factor. How's that sound? All right, Brian, I've actually extended the show for a few minutes because we are having so much fun. I want to thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we missed you last time because of your scheduling conflict. But you're always welcome. So, have AJ call me if you got something special coming up, and definitely have you back on. Or I'll give you a shout if I got something going on. I mean, I barely went through half of the articles that I wanted to talk to you about, such as the one poor girl that Boko Haram is still holding hostage because she refused to convert to Islam. No one's talking about that. And I found also, this was hysterical, an echo war where the sea lions were protected because they're considered an endangered species, and the salmon are now, which are endangered, are being eaten by the sea lions. So the echo warriors don't know what to do. We had so much I pulled out for you to talk about that would have been fun, but I'll hold off for next time. And people can find your show and they can find you talk. Excellent. Excellent, Brian. Thank you so much. Thank you, and God bless it for all the hard work you do. All right, Brian Crabtree, check him out at talk40.com. What a great guy. I love having him on. He's always so fun, so dynamic. His wife must be a pisser, really must be. What a great guy, Curtis. Listen, we got, today is what? Today is the 27th. All right, so we got coming up on Friday, Rick Collins. He's doing this rowing across the Atlantic Ocean. Can you imagine that? Rowing across the Atlantic Ocean, Rick Collins, for Tame the Kraken. And for every mile he rows, it's dedicated to someone suffering from PTSD, someone that has committed suicide. He's dedicating it to veterans, people that he called those that we are lost. So he'll be on Friday. And Scott Heisling has the book out, Echo in Ramadi. And it's finally gotten published and been updated. So we're going to be having Scott Heisling on and Rick Collins. And Friday is Good Friday. We were originally not going to broadcast because it is Good Friday. But I'm hoping that I'll be back here at the house in time. So, yeah, I definitely will have to be, even have to leave a little early, sneak out. So we will be broadcasting on Good Friday. And I want to thank everyone that's listening. I apologize if you're listening to the podcast and you're expecting us up on YouTube and Facebook and One Way, which is a new website just started this past month. It's excellent. Check out oneway.com as well as gab.ai. I have a problem with the video player. It crapped out halfway through the show, so I got to figure out what is going on with the computers here on my end. But I will see everyone back here on Friday. So I say until then, I say good night and God bless, and I'll leave you with when the roll is called up yonder. And we get this to play.